Topping today's news, the official opposition continues to call for the resignation of Immigration Minister Keith Bell. PLP chairman encourages party supporters to stay focused and encourage the MP for North Abaco, Inland Revenue cracking down on licensing for vacation rentals by non-Bahamians, and owners of buildings demolished downtown share their thoughts on the revitalization project. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jarino Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It is a pleasure to have you join us. Citing purported concerns that the Director of Immigration had back in 2022, the Free National Movement has renewed calls for Immigration and Labor Minister Keith Bell to resign. The call coming during a town hall meeting on Thursday evening. Opposition leader Michael Pintard read an email dated July 13, 2022, purportedly from the Director of Immigration, Ferguson, to Minister Bell, as well as the Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Labor and Immigration, Cecilia Strawn, addressing concerns that citizenship had been granted to foreign nationals without them renouncing their citizenship of their other countries, contrary to the requirements of the Bahamas Nationality Act. Ms. Ferguson, in that purported email, also asks to be advised on the legal ground that the Department of Immigration is covered by not following the law. Mr. Pintard maintains it is just the tip of the iceberg.
We know that, yes, a spouse of a woman who is married to a Bahamian man doesn't need to renounce her citizenship. We know that minors in that scenario don't have to renounce their citizenship. But what about all the other category of persons? The minister was busy approving persons, causing them to be approved, even though they did not renounce their former citizenship. People were being naturalized.
Mr. Pintard, along with former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, along with others, have repeatedly called for the Immigration Minister's resignation. The opposition has also placed on record in the lower chamber a litany of questions surrounding immigration matters.
Every Bahamian ought to be concerned about what is motivating Keith Bell and his colleague to make the kinds of decisions that they're making, and then have the audacity, the arrogance to say, man, don't say that, no answer, no question.
In July, Prime Minister Philip Davis promised a comprehensive review of the Department of Immigration and how decisions are made with a view of strengthening them.
Meanwhile, they're digging up in a whole bunch of other Bahamians' lives, seeking to lock them under the jail. But they are circling the wagon around clear breaking of the law, serial law breakers.
While most Progressive Liberal Party members of Parliament and other government officials have not commented on the circumstances surrounding the legal challenges faced by North Abaco MP Kurt Cornish, who was formally charged on Wednesday with 2 counts of rape, 2 counts of assault, and 1 count of threats of death. Breaking that silence earlier today was PLP Chairman and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service Fred Mitchell, who asked PLP members and supporters to encourage Mr. Cornish as the law takes its course.
The first thing is, in a personal way, all colleagues are hopeful for the best for our colleague in North Abaco, even as we understand that in law and convention, each actor is responsible for their own personal conduct, but it's a human thing to care for allies. So give him a call and let him know you're praying and your thoughts are with him. I shall be traveling up to Abaco shortly to hold up the flag. Remember what I said early in the week. Pilgrims, don't get weary. Better days are always ahead. The country has an independent judicial and legal arm, and folks may agree or disagree with its decisions, but we in the PLP are firmly committed to the rule of law without let or hindrance. Remember, no PLP minister has been condemned like those F&M ministers for interfering in the judiciary.
Minister Mitchell warned PLPs that there are potentially more challenges ahead. He says Prime Minister Philip Davis has asked each PLP member of Parliament and Senator to get their house in order if it is not already so.
All week long last week, as chairman of the party, I sought to advise the folk in the PLP and people of goodwill that trouble was coming down the road. The recent events in the courts may seem to be the worst of it, but don't count on it. I assure you that the devil is always busy. The Prime Minister has asked each MP and senator to take stock of the time and the atmosphere, to do an audit, both personal and public, and commit themselves, double down, to get the power back on in Andros, Grand Key, New Providence, and wherever, to put money in the hands of small business people, get the schools ready for opening, and shake hands and kiss babies. That's what's important. Remember, the best defense is offense.
Minister Mitchell was speaking from Bimini, where he joined the Member of Parliament for Bimini and West Grand Bahama and Minister of Social Services Obi Wilscombe in officially launching a satellite passport office on that island. The Department of Inland Revenue held a press conference this morning to inform the general public about new legislation as it relates to the Business License Act 2023, one of which is the need for non-Bahamians or non-Bahamian companies to have a business license if they are conducting residential rentals. Giving more details is Acting Controller Shonda Strawn.
So if you're in that arena of renting for residential purposes, you will need a business license if you are a non-Bahamian or if you are a Bahamian company. So if you're a Bahamian individual and you have properties that you rent for residential purposes, no, you don't need a business license. So that was one of the highlights because that didn't exist or wasn't spelled out before in the previous act. The second thing relative to rentals is around short-term vacation rentals. And that's one that gets a lot of questions asked to us. Bahamians in the area or in the industry of short-term vacation rentals do not need a business license. But if you are a foreigner or a company and you have a short-term vacation property that you rent, you do need a business license.
Ms. Strawn also noting that non-Bahamians in short-term rentals will have to register for VAT no matter what the turnover is.
If you are a non-Bahamian, you have to register for VAT no matter what your turnover is if you're in the area of short-term vacation rental. So we got a lot of questions in those areas, so we thought it important to clarify that. So again, if you're a Bahamian and you are renting your property for short-term vacation purposes, you do not need a business license and you don't need to register for VAT unless you have attained that turnover, that $100,000 turnover. So if you're doing really well and your rental properties are generating a turnover of over $100,000 and you're a Bahamian, then yeah, you need to register for VAT. But if you're a non-Bahamian, you have to register no matter what your threshold is.
Another line item that Act sheds light on is the new $750 fee for occasional business licenses relative to public events.
But if you are a promoter and you don't have an annual license and you're having a public entertainment event, so if you're bringing in somebody from the States to perform and you're selling tickets, that's the catch, right? You're selling tickets, it's at a public place, on public premises. You're inviting in an entertainer, whether it be Bahamian or foreigner, selling tickets, I'm going to say that again, right? And you're going to put up this nice stage and have lighting and you're spending money because you expect that you will generate a pretty sizable turnover. Then your occasional license fee is $750. So that $750 is really for events, public events, where tickets are sold. And so, we have some of them, the common ones, the Soca Fest and these types of big things where entertainers come and, the ticket prices are pretty sizable.
Now, this fee does not apply for cookouts, regatta, homecoming, or even church events. However, should one wish to hold an event at a church, you will be required to pay the $750 fee. Additionally, the occasional business license will only be valid for 7 days, and one can only obtain the occasional business license 4 times within 1 year before being required to apply for an annual business license. During the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Wednesday evening tour of eastern downtown area, which has become an eyesore with at least 9 buildings identified to be demolished, reporters were able to speak to property owner Marciana Moxie, whose building that once housed the old Williams shoe store was the first to be demolished. She sees it as an opportunity to work with the government to help improve the area.
Actually, we made the first initiation after we heard about the government wishing for the dilapidated buildings on Bay Street to be demolished. We put in an application from last year, and it was a back and forth between them and the Antiquities and Monument Agency, and we finally came to a conclusion a couple of weeks back where it was agreed that the building should be demolished. But we, as an entity, placed an application in the government, in the Ministry of Works, for demolition in October of last year.
The government has insisted that they are cooperating with property owners as they execute the downtown revitalization project. Ms. Moxie explains how her family acquired the building and shared their experience in trying to manage the building prior to the revitalization project.
Well, my family, sibling and I, we bought the building some years back, and it has always been in this state. I think we bought it probably for the property itself as opposed to the building, because it was never rentable from the time we bought it. And we had and have aspirations of developing the property. We have mold in our heads, and I think probably 2-3 years ago, I'm sure you would notice that on the porch we had a SketchUp where we are probably looking to develop into a mixed-use building where retail on the bottom, offices in the middle, and we know that the government is keen on making Nassau a livable city and some apartments at the top.
Demolition of other dilapidated buildings on East Bay Street expected to continue. And finally, in this segment, full military honors to salute the life and legacy of the late retired Commissioner of Police Paul Ferguson, held at Christ Church Cathedral on Thursday. Paying their respects was Governor General Sir Cornelius A. Smith, Prime Minister Philip Davis, Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper, Leader of the Official Opposition Michael Pentard, and former Prime Ministers Hubert Ingram and Dr. Hubert Minnis. While giving his tribute, Prime Minister Davis said the work of Paul Ferguson exceeded far beyond the Bahamas, extending throughout the region.
As Commissioner, Paul Ferguson understood that sometimes changing lives requires changing the system. He ushered in a new era of community policing and prioritized establishing open channels of communication between police officers and the residents they serve. This was part of his broader push to encourage connection, integrity, and excellence. The best way we can honor his legacy is to learn from it. We should all see the work of building safer homes and communities the way he did, as essential to national development. I believe we also owe him and each other our recognition that although our police are on the front lines of our nation's battle against violence and crime, this is a work that belongs to all of us.
Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernandez says Mr. Ferguson's 8-year tenure as Commissioner of Police was transformational, and his innovative policing will impact the Bahamas for years to come.
Today, we are reaping the benefits for what he put in place back then. The conference center is used to conduct our weekly Comstat crime strategy meetings with all commanders throughout the Bahamas using modern-day technology. Cabinet meetings are held at the conference center, along with other high-profile meetings from other government agencies. The public has also benefited from the center through private events. Truly, we cannot understate the effectiveness of his leadership and the lasting impact he has left on the Royal Bahamas Police Force.
Mr. Ferguson was buried today in St. Mary Magdalene Church Cemetery, Burnt Ground, Long Island. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.